Hello, guys. Welcome to this new edition of Mind Podcast. Together with Mohal Joshi. This is Aadit Kapadia. I introduced Mohal first because he's our returning champion, so he gets to go first. This is Aadit Kapadia coming to you on yet another week of insane news, political news from all across the world, India, America. More so, America was in the news politically about a huge development that's happening and news from the world of sport where the ICC World T20 is going on, and a lot of angry fans, including Mohal and I, are especially from India, are very disappointed with Team India's performance, although they have bounced back in the last two games. And depending on when you see it, when we are recording, it's the 6th of November, quite late in the night here, 6th of November morning in India. So I'm just giving this context. So 2 दिन बाद लोग आएंगे बोले नहीं you gave old news. so so there's that. Um, but
And
let's
first, I
let's
would
let me
like
give
to
you
wish
what we're gonna.
everybody like a happy Diwali and happy New Year. And
Yes. As Gujaratis, we all call it Sal Mubarak, Nutan
yeah,
Varsha
Sal Mubarak.
Abhinandan, Happy New
Yeah.
Year. आप जैसे
Mm-hmm.
आप जहाँ भी हो, celebrate as much. जहाँ पण छो तो मैं जलसा कर जो. I was like, if I'm talking about a Gujarati New Year, I have to talk in Gujarati. And
Yeah.
yes, and happy Diwali to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
May you all or everyone up to Diwali chali gayi, but I hope everyone has had a lot of mithais, sweets, crackers wherever they are, and has had a lot of fun. But we are here to break down the political news, the news that happened this week, and trying to make the most of everything. So, without further ado, Mohal, we'll talk a little bit about the Virginia, New Jersey elections, the World T20 and stuff. But initial reactions before we get into the hard politics of stuff and the cricket bit, we'll talk about Rahul Dravid at the very end. I want to just talk a little bit about the World T20 and what the heck happened to Team India in against Pakistan and New Zealand.
I mean, the team looked like out of sorts. I don't know if they were like a bit scared. I mean, even the approach in the first few overs, especially against New Zealand, was mind-boggling. That they didn't even look to attack. I mean, I think between the fifth and the 16th over against New Zealand, they didn't even score a single boundary, which is like insane when you think about like 2020 cricket.
Yeah. No, and it was almost like an abject surrender, right? It seemed like a surrender, like, and I mean, I don't want to say be too harsh, but like it was like the effort was, harna koi buri baat nahi yaar, losses happen, but it's like the effort was
The
missing. The team
way,
selection was all botched up. A lot of us, well,
but the team
sorry, yeah,
selection has
Mohal,
been
go ahead.
botched up like since like I mean with Kohli, it's always going to be some strange selection out of left field with him and Shastri there.
Yeah. Yeah, with Shastri and both Shastri and Kohli are no longer going to be there in the T20 team. Shastri
Mm-hmm.
certainly won't be there, and Dravid will be the coach. Thank heavens for that. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the most perplexing thing was Kohli just doesn't seem to notice that Ashwin is in the team till the Afghanistan game, and I mean, I mean, last 6 months he's just not been playing him
Yeah.
after we've moved out of India. And he's been doing stupendously well in the IPL. He did well last year. And ultimately, against Pakistan, you play your big match players. You don't play. You don't. I'll just give this example of what is the thinking. Like in
Mm-hmm.
2003 World Cup, Anil Kumble and Harbhajan Singh were both there, right? Anil Kumble had both of them had played the first two games, and then Ganguly changed in his mind, thought that we need three fast bowlers, and then they'll all play. And Harbhajan was played. It was good. So I mean he was in his prime at that time. Kumble hadn't developed the deliveries he did later in Test matches at the end of
Mm-hmm.
2003 when he became absolutely lethal. But against Pakistan, Anil Kumble was picked in 2003 World Cup. So if he did not, he played the first two matches, then he did not play. It was a big mistake dropping him for the final because the wicket turned square. Sehwag and Tendulkar bowled more overs, and we had one of the world's best spinners on the sideline. But that being said, you play big. you pick your big match players. I'm not saying Harbhajan isn't, but I'm saying Ashwin, you with the experience of playing against Pakistan, I think him and Varun Chakravarti both should have picked. But Mr. Kohli Lloyd, who thinks that he can have a fast bowling attack even on the slow wickets of Dubai, I mean, I don't know what you can say
I
about that.
wonder if they were worried about the due factor about not playing more
नहीं यार,
spinners.
see देखो, but then what if like the way the wicket was turning, right? Like the due factor, we all saw how badly Shami could not grip the ball in the last over, like in the last 3 overs. I mean, I don't know what was going
I mean,
on.
even picking Ashwin, like, I mean, it became pretty bad. I mean, it's not like we don't
Hmm.
like Kohli and we're trying to bash Kohli here, but even I saw a few days before the Afghanistan game, even Dilip Vengsakar made a comment that why is a world class player like Ashwin not being selected? So it's like even the
Yes.
cricketing experts are baffled as to why. I mean, that's what I think we could have won so many matches under Kohli's captaincy if he had a different selection. It's like, even though he's like highly successful, but I think a lot of matches are being lost because of inconsistent
The
selection.
talent that Team India had, it had the potential to be what Steve was. Steve not potential, I'm saying,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know. But you need a Steve Waugh. You need someone who can drop their favorite players and pick people they don't get along with, or allegedly don't get along with. I don't want to attribute motives. But then there was another thing we noticed after the Pakistan game. People, based on 5 Instagram comments on Mohammad Shami, reprehensible, terrible comments. None of them, 5, 10, jitne bhi hai, they should not have been made. You should not be targeting Mohammad Shami. He is a champion bowler. He gave it his all. कभी कभी हो जाता है. But the thing is, you can criticize him for his performance, right? And then, you had the Barkha Duts of this world, and all of them make it such a Rana Ayubs and make it such a big issue, right? And the biggest problem was, right, that folks like Rana Ayub started hanging on this. Like, they couldn't point out 10 tweets like these, right? And then what has happened is all these journalists who probably haven't even seen, like, I'm not saying Barkha hasn't, but I'm saying many journalists who have suddenly become cricket experts and in Virat Kohli defense, members of Virat Kohli defense leagues haven't seen 5 matches in the past year, but suddenly want to talk about when we criticize Kohli for his bad performance. They're like, oh, you are criticizing because he made this statement in support of Shami, or took a knee. No, when we talk, we don't have the problems you guys have. We don't want to be activists when we talk sport. When we talk sport, we talk sport. So I don't understand. Mohal, can you talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, I mean, initially, like the comments which were like terrible, and nobody should be making such comments for sure. But later on, I think a few news organizations dug deep on like where they came from, and they seem to have originated from our neighboring western neighbor, unfortunately.
Hmm.
So it was like to create some kind of communal tension between the players, and I mean, second, obviously, as you said, some of the journalists like who are always looking for that angle that okay they are being discriminated against because of religion and stuff, they picked it up saying oh this was a widespread issue, but I think everybody knew that it wasn't as widespread as we do believe to be, I mean that's what they've been doing, like they pick up a random strange and then you portray oh this is prevalent across the breadth of India.
Absolutely. It's pathetic, right? Like, then you run the risk of like not criticizing. And personally, I feel Shami is a far better test bowler than a T20 bowler. I think he's a great one day bowler. T20 is just what happens to Pat Cummins, right? Like, he sometimes when it swings and seams, he's brilliant because they bowl the coin like, ball like at one spot they can land the same ball there for like 23 times, right? But in T20 you need the guile or the pace of Bumrah, and Shami just right now doesn't have the pace. So it's a tough question. Even if India makes it though to the World T20 final, it is T20 semi-finals, it would be to a stroke of good luck and stuff. And one almost feels like we should have beaten New Zealand or Pakistan, right? Because the team. But then this is a very new, aggressive team India, the one we wanted to see that we saw in the last 2 games. So kya pata, the shellacking, the public shellacking that they got might have just done them some good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what was going on like in the first two games. They just didn't look they look totally out of sorts. I don't know if it was the fatigue from the repeated COVID bubbles. I mean,
I,
biosecurity bubbles. I mean, they've been in like what, out of the last 12 months, practically
no,
nine
but
months in bubbles.
my friend, so yeah, I agree. But then I don't think there was any excuse to have a IPL bubble this long before the T20. They could have easily slotted two IPL games a day and finished the IPL in two
Yeah,
weeks.
sure. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this,
I mean, that's where the
this,
money factor, like, I mean, BCCI is just running after money. They
yeah.
don't care about,
So
even
this
Kohli.
idiotic thing, yeah.
I mean, no, I mean, even Kohli, sorry, like to interrupt you, but like even Kohli said that this cannot be sustained over. I mean, the amount of international cricket that is played nowadays, there
Yeah,
has to be breaks, and or you have to rotate players. I mean, either you get rid of biosecurity bubbles or you get rid of the that many games in the COVID
yeah.
times.
We are starting the New Zealand T20 and try one day series 3 or 4 days after the T20,
Yeah,
and say if India and New Zealand makes it to the final, right? So are they just supposed to? And I find this ridiculous, saying that people who are saying कि अरे आपको बीच में छुट्टी की क्या जरूरत है भाई? An athlete's body has to recover. You can't just. But I do support that the IPL is too long. Like was too long this time. I agree
and now they're
because of
adding two
COVID
more
and
teams,
stuff.
so it's going to become even longer.
No, that's fine. They just need to have more double headers. I find this दुनिया में हर जगह double headers होते हैं. Only in IPL we have this bizarre thing where there is only one match a day, and everyone and then most, like, not all matches are going to be competitive, right? So why should people be watching 88 all out plays 89 in 14 overs, right? That's just boring to watch. So I mean I think they have to really up their sort
I
of
mean,
game
see,
on that.
it's all about the revenue. I mean, they start at what, like the 8 p.m. India time to maximize revenue. It's all about the money making factor. I mean, why
Yeah.
do you have strategic timeouts in IPL and not in any other 2020? It's all about the money factor, like to maximize. I mean, even the due factor, right? I mean, IPL, you could easily start the match if you have a single header. You could easily start the match an hour or two early and finish the match before due hits you. But like,
Hmm.
they just care about the money. I mean, BCCI, they don't like care about like whether the tournament is too long and stuff, because they rule the cricket world, you know.
No, I see. I understand. No, I understand that. I don't blame them completely because that is the worldwide sports, right? In NFL, we also know it starts at 12 o'clock on Sunday, right? Now
Mm-hmm.
they've added this London game to thing, but they'll never start the game until it's prime time in America, or at least most
Mm-hmm.
of the target audience can see when they see.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is fine. But NFL does not have one game a day. Like they can
Yeah.
have one game a day if they want. Like they can have one on Sunday,
Yeah.
one on Monday, and so forth. But it's no fun to watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to create city based loyalty, and you have to basically, ultimately, then people are going to get bored because
Yeah.
if you expect that the one person is going to watch 70 games every single day, they don't. I mean,
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
every single season they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so when you change it, and then you can have national broadcast, so your marquee clashes, right, where you have rivalry, you have one national broadcast, you have many simultaneous broadcasts. So like when if there are two teams that are doing number 7 and number 8, right, and they are playing absolutely awful cricket, I don't see why there can't be a double header at the
Mm-hmm.
same time. And last time,
Yeah.
I think the last IPL,
And they don't even need a
they
simultaneous double header. They can have one game at 3 and one game at 7, like they do on the weekends, you know.
yeah, so I mean it's just crazy. But speaking about crazy, and we'll come back to cricket in the end, we have to go to US politics,
Yeah.
because the most fascinating thing happened. And I'm not going to explain this. I mean, I'm going to let Mohal lead with this, and then I'll jump in. So Mohal, can you explain our viewers, listeners, what happened in America?
Yeah, so like this past November, I mean not past November, this past Tuesday, we
Hmm.
had the governor elections in two states, in New Jersey and Virginia, and a few other miscellaneous races here and there. So I mean, this is not a midterm year.
Hmm.
Obviously, we had the presidential election last year. So in Virginia, like which is a D+10 state. What I mean is that Biden won the state by
Hmm.
handily by 10 points, which is like a solidly blue state.
Hmm.
I think the last on the presidential
Hmm.
level, the last Republican to win it was probably, I guess, George Bush. I guess if I'm not wrong, or maybe yeah, George Bush. I guess junior. I mean, and it's been like trending blue, so it flipped to the Republican, which was kind of a big shock for many Democrats. I mean, many of us who were tracking the
Hmm.
election, we could see that there could be a major upset. So the and even demo, I mean New Jersey, like I mean, which of all places I know, like Chris Christie did win as a Republican governor, but that also with a +9 state, like I mean, the Democrat did win, Phil Murphy, but it was a major shock
Mm.
that it was a huge swing against the Democrats in the off election year.
So here is New Jersey. I want everyone to pay attention, right? The difference in the end was close to about less
Two and
than,
a
I think,
half.
70,000 votes between them.
Okay, okay, yeah, 2.5% around.
Yeah, 2.5%. Yeah, and that is nothing because this is a state that Biden won by 16 percentage points. Now, one could say that the turnout was significantly lower than what
Mm-hmm.
what it was. But then let's look at 2017 when he won with 56% of the vote. So his vote went down by 6%. Jack Ciattarelli
So,
gave
mm-hmm,
him the fright of his life. And then look
mm-hmm.
at these counties right now, they've all turned deep red, they were light red. And I want you guys to see this, what happened in 2017. Look at 2017.
And then also I might
See
add that Phil Murphy. So Phil, the votes got by Jack Ciattarelli, the Republican candidate in 2021 when he lost, was still more than the amount of votes that Phil Murphy himself got in a election
yeah,
4 years ago.
exactly. And look at all these districts, right? They are all parts of blue. There are deep blue colors here and light red and stuff. And then you certainly go and boom, there we go. And
Hmm.
this really means that the suburban vote is coming back to the Democrats.
I
And
mean
none,
Republicans.
sorry, to the Republicans. It's going away from the Democrats.
Hmm.
But Virginia is a bigger and a more stunning story than even New Jersey,
Hmm.
because you have Virginia Beach, where Fairfax, where Youngkin actually got like 10, 15 or something votes, and then you had Virginia Beach, where actually he flipped the scales. So let's
Yeah,
look at the 2020 presidential election, because this is how much. Look at the swings. This is
yeah. So
all
that
of them swung Republican.
just for the viewers, we want to tell them that the arrows represent the swing from the 2020 election, presidential election. So the larger the arrow size means the larger the
Hmm.
swing.
Yeah, and look at the vote share, right? So here is where these were all blue. And not only
Hmm.
has he made a few light blue, a few he's made light red. And these are pretty big counties, 100,
I mean,
200,000
see
people.
the interesting. Mhm. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and I was just saying that in the suburbs of DC, Fairfax County,
Hmm.
suburbs of there, he's picked all of them up. And then this is all Trump country. And not only has he picked them up, he's actually ran up the board. He's gotten more votes than Trump did in some districts,
Yeah,
percentage
so that
wise.
was, yeah, so I think that was one of the things, I believe, like we did a podcast like in January after the
Hmm.
2020 election. So the whole thing was that, could, I mean, we all thought that Trump had maxed out his returns in the rural areas, but interestingly in Southwest Virginia, which you showed, he ran
Hmm.
up even numbers higher than Trump. So there is more votes to be gotten, which is kind of shocking if you think about it, because I mean they're already running at 70 or 80% of all the votes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he is harvesting more votes out of there. Yeah, and the, as I said, even back like, what is it, like now 11 months ago when we last talked, that
Hmm.
the the suburbs is where the game is. I mean the
Yeah.
towns are all solidly blue, the rural areas are solidly red, so suburbs is where the game is. And I mean, back in 2020, I mean, I said, like, people look at the overall election and they look at, okay, Trump lost, so okay, so that is good news for Dems. But then I had warned even back then that the suburbs is not a solidly blue lot. Watch out, this could easily revert back based on a lot of social issues. And
and
also one more
and
thing. Mhm.
go ahead.
No, and then one more thing was that the people just looked at the top result, right? You didn't look that in a year that Trump lost, the
Hmm.
Republicans gained 12 seats in the House, which is like shocking.
Yeah, so
So like,
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to the
mhm,
delegates. So
mhm,
basically, you had Winsome Sears also winning. She's the first
mhm.
African American lieutenant governor
Lieutenant
of
Governor.
Virginia, and then Jason Miyares. So not only they had a Latino African American, and Glenn Youngkin. So they had a
Mm-hmm.
coalition that was there. The House of Delegates, Republicans have a majority there,
Mm-hmm.
50-47. And then not only was this a Republican sweep there, New Jersey they made gains. In New York, Eric Adams won, but Eric Adams used to be an ex-Republican. Not a lot of far left people like him in the
Mm-hmm.
Democratic Party. You had Minneapolis, where the defund the police, the whole thing was
It failed.
basically put failed. And then you had the issues that were happening in Seattle, where a Republican won in Seattle.
Yeah, I
So
mean, see, like,
this is the most
yeah, go
for
ahead.
Seattle city attorney. Now, granted, she used to be a Democrat. But the thing is, she was a moderate Democrat. She was not a far left Democrat like what Seattle politics had become, or
Yeah.
Washington State politics had become. And for her to win in Seattle was a big deal.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as I said, I had written on Mind Makers back in December, and also said on your podcast
Hmm.
that the like the progressives like want a certain kind of agenda, but I don't think the rest of the US is ready for it. It's alienating a lot of these suburban voters, and many
Hmm.
people are underestimating like the impact of them. I mean, let's take the four corners of US. Like in Seattle, you had a Republican
Hmm.
winning. Granted, she was a former moderate Democrat. So then you go to the South. In Virginia, you had a Republican winning, which is kind of significant, which is like a +5. I mean, even in the gubernatorial races, it was like a +5, +9 state.
Hmm.
Then in the Northeast, you had Buffalo, where during the Democratic primary, a socialist, an open socialist, like she won the primary. So the incumbent Democrat moderate mayor ran as a write-in campaign and defeated the socialist. And you have in the Midwest, Minnesota, where defund the
Hmm.
police campaign. So like in four different corners of the country, like you see the progressive agenda is not working out well. I mean, even though after the Virginia loss, AOC claimed that, oh, Terry McAuliffe lost because he wasn't progressive enough. I mean, he was too moderate, that's why he lost the campaign, which is kind of crazy in my opinion. Like there were many other reasons, but that wasn't the reason why they lost.
Hmm. Hmm. No, absolutely. And no, I think here is a message, right? Right, that if the Republicans actually might have run sensible conservatives or moderates on their ticket, they can actually break the Democrat coalition. And the Democrats have so many issues within the fissures, like India Walton or I forget her name, the Buffalo candidate who
Yeah,
lost,
India
the Buffalo
Walters.
mayor
Yeah.
candidate who lost. And she I forget who won. The current mayor, I forget his
Yeah,
name,
the
but
incumbent
basically,
one.
yeah, the incumbent one. And I mean, it's quite stunning if you think about it, of what they've managed to do. But that's the message, I guess, from US, that maybe a little bit of moderation in the Democratic Party is required. Joe Biden by no means is a far left candidate. So I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I mean,
what he'll do. I think his bill passed tonight.
mhm, yeah. I mean, one more thing before we
No,
like
so
close out the
I mean, I
topic.
just don't know what he. Yeah, go ahead. You go ahead. Yeah.
No, I mean,
Hmm.
like one of the things, like I mean, we saw. I mean, even as I said, when like in 2020, like 11 months ago. Sorry, I'm just keep repeating myself that Trump lost because the moderates, like the college educated suburban Republicans, they said, okay, Trump is too toxic of a brand and we don't want him. But that doesn't mean that what the Trumpism is gone. I kept saying to friends that Trump is gone, but doesn't mean that Trumpism is gone. Like, there are a lot of issues that progressives want to push, but I don't think many in the country want it. I mean, so this clearly shows a rebuke of the progressive agenda, where I mean, and then like what Youngkin did to his credit was, I mean, Terry McAuliffe ran a terrible campaign, but Youngkin to his credit, like he didn't want Trump anywhere in Virginia because he knew that it would alienate all the possible voters he was trying to quote, like the Republicans going
Absolutely.
back. So
Absolutely.
he didn't even want Trump there, but he wanted Trump's endorsement. So that is going to be the challenge, that in many of these swing states, how could candidates like not fully embrace Trump? Maybe if it's in the deep Republican red areas, then they
Ultimately,
might need to Trump. But like here, how to keep Trump at a distance, but also get his endorsement, so that you get the best of both worlds. You don't alienate anybody, and you get all the Trump voters on your side.
Yeah, I personally think, I personally feel that I don't think it's going to be very easy for Trump to become president again. But who
Yeah,
knows? You know,
but
funnier
he has
things have
an
happened in
outsized,
this
but
world.
no, yeah, but he has an outsized influence. So, like in the swing states, I mean, like a candidate, like so, Youngkin has shown a template now to Republicans of how to run. I mean, so that's the thing. Like how much Trump will meddle in affairs, nobody knows. But in
Hmm.
many of these swing states, I mean, and I mean, we all know that Biden's one of the things which contributed to defeat was Biden's popularity. I mean, I think it's his popularity at this stage is like lower than anybody else except Trump. So I mean, the Afghanistan war, the inflation, supply chain issues, uh, the bills not passing, and the
Hmm.
Afghanistan debacle. I think everything has contributed to like less than 40% rating. Even among independents, I mean, the rating is like 30, 40%. So I think all the independent voters have shifted to the Republicans because they're not happy with the current state of, and plus the Delta wave, right? So that also
True.
contributed to flattening him.
That absolutely did. Absolutely did. But moving on from there to the news, that other news that dominated this week. So it's fascinating. It's bad news for the Democrats. They really need to get their act together, and people might not be as supportive or defund the police as the far left wing of the party might think. Ultimately, I think the squad is getting more and more alienated, except for a few pockets of urban influence. And I think the Democratic Party also needs to take a call that New York and California, which give it the most seats, right, most seats in the in the house, in overall in the presidential elections, are you going to let them sort of take call the shots and stuff? So that's some very interesting times ahead. But from there to our last 10 minutes, we're
Yeah,
going
I
to
mean, but
go
I
back
mean,
to cricket, which people are going to
like
be like ye kya ho
one
raha hai,
last
but
point I wanted
ये यही
to.
हो रहा है. Rahul Dravid is now the coach of the Indian team. Ah, no, no,
Mhm.
finish your point and then we'll go to
No,
cricket.
so last
Ah,
point, I
yeah, yeah,
think
please go ahead.
this almost now guarantees that
Yeah, no,
the
go ahead. Yeah.
Republicans are going to retake the House. You know, I think this Virginia could be like a canary in the coal mine where he might have lost, but I think he is showing enough of warning signs to Democrats that if they don't get their act together, I think at this point the House is gone. I mean, Senate is still up for grab, could be gone, but I think the last second half of Biden presidency could be lame duck if the Republicans take over the House, you know, which I think is like a sure shot at this point now with all the redistricting and uh, like the losses in Virginia, you know. Sorry, go ahead. Like, wanted to go back to
Hmm.
Rahul Dravid, I guess.
Yeah, you're like कि वापस राहुल द्रविड़ पे चले जाओ.
Yeah,
But so what are your first thoughts about Dravid being the coach
I
of the
think
team?
he's a excellent pick. I mean, with the under 19 and the A team, I mean, what we saw in Australia and even with the England series, we saw a lot of injured players being replaced seamlessly. The new players were plugged in without any effort, and they performed brilliantly. And you could never make out like Siraj was on debut in Australia, or like a few other players who were performing very well. So I think the coaching and the guidance he has given to this player, I think is going to be fruitful. Now I worry a
Hmm.
little bit about the pipeline of new cricketers, whether they're going to be
Hmm.
coached to the same standards. If I don't know
Hmm.
if Dravid is not there, who is there? I
Hmm.
mean, the million-dollar question is, can he gel with Kohli? I mean, we all know that after the 2017 Champions Trophy, he and Kumble had the differences, and Kumble, who was a good coach, had to leave. So
Hmm.
it'll be interesting to see, like, can they gel
I,
together or.
and probably the closest friend of Rahul Dravid, we're talking about, like Anil Kumble and Rahul Dravid were very close, so are still close. And it left a bitter taste in many cricketers, mouth, ex cricketers' mouths, because uh, Kumble was respected. He did very well as the coach, and a lot of things that you've seen changed to Kumble happen. And most importantly, Kumble had a veto over Kohli. Like he had a question. Like I
Yeah,
agreed, the captain should take the calls, but when the captain is taking dumb calls, you shouldn't just be rolling over.
yeah,
You
yeah.
should be actually questioning him. And
That's
I
why,
don't
like,
think this
Shastri is
protects them.
alleged to be a
So,
yes man, right?
especially in Test matches.
Sorry, I'm saying like
Mhm.
Shastri is alleged to be a yes
Yeah.
man, right?
So
That's the problem.
I don't know. I really don't know. Hopefully. Mhm. No, so I mean, I really don't know what is the way forward, but I just hope that Indian cricket ultimately presses a hard reboot about button. Maybe there are some bold moves, and who knows, when we go to South Africa or when New Zealand comes touring, we might see some nice surprises under Dravid. So
But I mean, do
here's
you
to
think
good
like
times and watching
Kohli should
them.
give up the white ball captaincy completely?
I actually think he should give up all forms of captaincy. I think he's a phenomenal batsman, but like
Hmm.
Sachin, he's just not been able to, and his level of like thing in the field is completely different. Sachin's thing was he would go into shells, and then he's himself written about it. Like when as a batsman, and that suffered. That made his problem, and you can see the lack of fluency in Virat Kohli, the way he's playing his shots. I mean, it looks like a very laborious innings whenever he comes in plays. Those that fluent drive where he just looked like you just went like wow, is completely missing. And for all the people who say, oh, did Sachin come back with that? Yes, he did. He actually got a double hundred at
Yeah,
38 or 37, I forget when. But that's my thing. Like, there was a complete and completely new reinvented Sachin Tendulkar after captaincy, I think, which was even far better than his previous
yeah.
exploits.
I
So
mean, in the white ball cricket, I mean, yeah, the reason I asked is like red ball. I mean, there's no obvious candidate. I mean, obviously we have Rahane, but he hasn't been in form.
no, I
But
think
in
Rohit
white, but
Sharma.
in
Rohit
even
Sharma.
but do you think Rohit would be an automatic? I mean, he has been doing very good as the opener in the last 2 days. I mean, I abused him a lot for playing Test match cricket like before. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think one underestimated aspect, if you think after Lakshman Dravid, everybody retired. Our slip catching was not up, but Rohit is an excellent slip catcher. So I think I have rediscovered a new facet of Rohit's Test match playing. Like he's
Excellent
an
slip
excellent
catcher.
slip catcher, so which is he adds to it, and obviously his stroke play, he has cut down on his strokes, and still he gets
Mhm.
some of this. Why did he play that short dismissal? But I think he has much improved Test match batsman. But I don't know about the Test match captaincy. Maybe
No,
Ashwin or
वो तो
somebody else can, or Rahane can take it.
वो तो देखो, that you get that with some that sort of player. We would get that with Sehwag on a weekly basis. I still don't know, when he was bashing Australians to all parts of the ground in MCG at 195, he hits a full toss to long on, like when there were four fielders on the boundary in the biggest ground in the world. And I mean, India was like 300 for two or something, and then we were, or like
Yeah,
250 for two, and
and
we
we
were all
lost
out
that Test
for,
match.
yeah, we were all out for 380, like in the end,
Yeah,
because Sehwag just was playing on another level.
yeah.
But that's how he got to 195,
Yeah.
right?
No,
He
but I mean,
got to.
but do you think? I think like in the white ball, I mean, it's obvious. I mean, Kohli has to should give up the ODI captaincy for
Mhm.
India's sake. I mean, even in like let's say even if India don't make out of the semi-final stage, like the next we have another World Cup in. As I was saying, telling friends like, don't be disappointed. We have another 2020 World Cup in 11 and a half months.
Hmm. No, but there is a 50 over one in about 24 months, and I honestly don't see the Virat Kohli leading India in that one. So I'm hoping he doesn't, because he
But
he has a lot more to offer as a
mhm.
player, fielder, and dare I say a performer on the field.
But maybe in like 12 months World Cup, I mean, I don't know if Kohli and Rohit both might be there. I think we should just go with a younger team, is what I feel that. Just like we did in 2007.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. 2007 is a very deadly year example to give. So we'll see how it works. It's fascinating times ahead.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
Mohal, in conclusion, what do you, any closing comments you have before we go to recommendations?
No, I mean, we all hope that, I mean, there will be, I think, 1.4
Any
billion
closing
plus
comments, Mohal,
people.
before we go to recommendations?
Yeah, I'm saying like we'll be having 1.4 billion people praying for an Afghanistan victory on Monday.
Mm,
Sorry, on Sunday, sorry. And then we can, I think our net run rate is better than,
Sunday.
we don't need to worry about net run anymore, just the way we bashed Scotland today. So I guess if we beat Namibia and Afghanistan does its job, I guess, I think 1.4 billion people will be cheering for Afghanistan on Sunday.
I think actually 2 billion people, many Pakistanis want to see an India Pakistan final, a repeat of 2007. So,
Yeah, but
uh,
see, in
you,
2017, Ulta was right. We won against in the group stage. So, I mean, I
no,
better
no, I
carefully.
carefully said 2007 World T20. I did not refer to
Oh, okay, okay.
2017. So,
No, no, but
but
उल्टा
let's
हो
see.
सकता है ना, उल्टा हो सकता है कि you
That
better
is
be,
true.
you don't want to
Arey,
be India firing
ultimately,
all
right
guns.
now the two best teams in this tournament have been Pakistan and England. I mean, by
Yeah,
a
yeah.
distance. But
Hmm.
beware of a resurgent South Africa and beware of a resurgent Australia,
Yeah.
because they don't go into many tournaments not being favorites. But guess what? They're just clicking all their bases at the right time. They've even figured out a way they can play Quinton de Kock, and for Australia, David Warner. So let's see how that works.
Mhm.
Before we go, Mohal, any recommendations for our listeners?
Why did you go first? I have to like think of something. I mean,
Acha, I'll go first then. A couple of recommendations, I guess I have, folks. I recently started, I watched actually Bill Maher's editorials this season. I don't agree with
hmm.
every one of them, but some of them have been outstanding, like, because they have provoked questions, right? And for me, any outstanding piece of journalism is not something that comes to conclusions. I have disagreed with Mar more than I've agreed with him, but it's always interesting to listen to him and point, okay, this is correct, this is wrong, this is where I agree and stuff. So watch those; they're all on YouTube. Um, my second recommendation, so to speak, is a show that I'm about to. I'm in process of watching. It's called The Lost Symbol. It's by Dan Brown. There is a show. The
Oh, okay.
show, I mean, tries to do a little bit of justice to the book, but the reason I'm recommending is if you guys are fans of Dan Brown, this will be a very interesting thing what they've done. And maybe this is the way forward for Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons, because I just did not like what they did with the movies. They were very average movies.
Mhm.
Tom Hanks was playing Tom Hanks and Robert Langdon, and they need to find, maybe the guy who played them on TV was a good idea and stuff, because they can pack all the material that he's talking about, right? You can't make a movie 400 minutes long, but you can make 10 episodes of 40 minutes each, which is what this series is, and which is what Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons can be. So maybe that's so. Those are my recommendations. Mohal, you?
I mean, I haven't watched anything new in a long time, so my recommendations will be slightly old. So I watched like Shersha like a couple of months ago, which was like an excellent movie on Captain Vikram
Yeah.
Batra. And the other was like Ted Lasso. I don't know if many people have watched. Like it's a cross. I think it's like it combines a good part of the American
Oh,
humor and the
oh my
English
God.
humor.
Yes.
Yeah, so
One of the
those two
best
are my
shows.
recommendations.
Ted Lasso and Hacks, two of my favorite shows. This, yeah, that and Mayor of Easttown this year, and three of them have won all the awards in the
Mm-hmm.
categories. No, absolutely, I agree. Ted Lasso is. I mean, every episode you watch, it leaves you with a smile. I
Yeah,
don't know how they
yeah.
managed to do that. It's just
Mm-hmm.
brilliant.
I mean,
And
Jason Sudeikis has done an excellent
and
job. I
yeah,
mean, all
no,
the
I mean,
characters look
guys,
like
watch
perfectly
this.
casted.
Yeah, yeah. You can't imagine anyone else playing the part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's it from us, folks. This has been always fun to have Mohal on. I know the connection was a little patchy, so you might have a sporadic buzz. I apologize for that. It's just been a strange day with the internet at, from the place where I'm recording, but kya kare, we still have to bring our weekly podcast to you guys,
Mhm.
so we managed to do it. We'll be back with more. Kya pata, Democrats might pull a couple of other fast ones. But this is a very interesting year. America, if you think India is in perpetual election mode, come to US. US is like, मतलब यहाँ तो मतलब from like local parish councillor से लेके president तक, everyone is fighting elections continuously. So I remember this one dialogue, that Leo McGarry says in The West Wing, that if you want to govern, and you think you have 4 years, no, in 2 years there's a midterm, and if you lose majority, you can't do anything. You'll be in lame duck mode. So you have got 18 months. 18 months, 1.5 year, because then you're campaigning for the victims in the next 6 months. So that is why you have transition. So it's fascinating, right? And every new facet of American politics takes me back to the West Wing, right? Because Aaron Sorkin is not a whole. He's been a Democrat. He's been a liberal, but the far left hates him because Aaron Sorkin is a bit of a centrist. So or the moderate Democrats Democrat, like what they call them. So much of his writing to West Wing, which all of us relate to a lot, many in the far left actually don't agree with. So it's quite fascinating. But go watch the West Wing if you want to really know, because it seems like 20 years down the lane, US is still fighting about the same issues.
Hmm.
And for all our Indian fans, he's written this. There was this whole episode where the president and Sam were debating over a chess set gifted him to him by the Prime Minister of India on who should be the allies, India or China. And Sam says India, they have democracy, and then a couple of other things. They are a developing country, and then he said they have a better sense of humor. So Sorkin wrote this line about us. Let's not let him down, guys. I'm kidding, of course, but do watch them all. But thank you, Mohal, for joining. It was truly a
Yeah,
pleasure
yeah. Thanks,
discussing
Adit.
everything. We'll be back next week, guys, with more. Till then, keep listening, keep tweeting at us, liking our streams, and let us know what we can do more. Talk to you guys soon, and maybe we'll have an interaction with our audience in one of our upcoming podcasts. Thank you, and it's a wrap.
It still says live.
And it was not a wrap. This is interesting. The broadcast did not